On April 13, the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, in collaboration with Iraqi Popular Mobilization Forces, Lebanese Hezbollah, and the Yemeni Houthis, launched a large-scale retaliatory attack for an earlier Israeli airstrike on Iranian consulate annex in Damascus. The assault involved roughly 170 drones, over 30 cruise missiles, and more than 120 ballistic missiles. An international coalition, including American, British, French, and Jordanian air forces, defended Israel, destroying 99% of incoming threats, mostly before they entered Israeli airspace. The next day, Iran's UN envoy declared the attacks concluded, but the incident drew international criticism and warnings of potential escalation into a regional war. Despite calls for restraint from U.S. President Biden, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to retaliate, leading to an Israeli airstrike on April 18, targeting a major airbase in Isfahan, home to Iran's fleet of American-made F-14 Tomcats and critical to Iran's nuclear program, including the underground Natanz enrichment site. This escalation happens during an ongoing intense conflict with Gaza, which has resulted in nearly 34,000 deaths, raising concerns about regional violence. Today, I'll discuss the Iran-Israel relationships. Welcome to the World and Me project with Dr. Yeva Aleksanyan. Please press the like button, subscribe to our channel, leave your comments, and share our videos. You can also visit our website at www.worldandme.info and explore more about our project, read articles and facts related to our videos. The relationship between Israel and Iran wasn't always so strained. Before the Islamic Revolution of 1979, the dynamics were quite different, with Iran being one of the first Muslim-majority countries to recognize Israel as a sovereign nation. Initially, in the late 1940s and early 1950s, the Israel-Iran relationship was relatively low profile. In 1947, Iran was among 13 countries that voted against the UN partition plan for the British Mandate of Palestine, proposing splitting the territory into independent Jewish and Arab states with an internationally administered Jerusalem. 2 years after the plan or UN resolution, Iran also voted against Israel's admission to the United Nations. Additionally, in the spring of 1948, 30,000 Iranians in Tehran protested against the establishment of Israel. The Iranian public was sympathetic to Palestinians, with many Iranians choosing to donate their zakat to Palestinian causes. Zakat is one of the 5 pillars of Islam, which requires Muslims to give a portion of their income, typically 2.5%, to charity each year. This mandatory almsgiving aims to support the needy, including the poor, and those fighting for a just cause. So, over decades, many Iranians chose to donate their zakat to Palestinian causes. These sentiments would play an important role after the Islamic Revolution. So, clearly, the relationship between Israel and Iran was not at its best during the period of late 1940s and early 1950s. Things took a significant turn after the 1953 coup in Iran. This US and British-backed Iranian army-led coup overthrew the elected Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh. The West reinstated the monarchy and the rule of pro-Western Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. Such change improved the relations between Iran and Israel. By the way, for more details on the events leading up to Islamic Revolution, check our video on Iran before 1979. The link will be posted in the descriptions below. Israel saw Iran as a natural ally, a non-Arab power situated in the edge of the Arab world. Israel maintained a permanent delegation in Tehran, which functioned as de facto embassy until formal ambassadors were exchanged in the late 1970s. Ayatollah Qasim Kashani, who supported anti-colonial movements in Egypt and Tunisia, criticized his government's decision to recognize Israel, viewing it as a colonial outpost. This sentiment was echoed in ayatollahs before and after him, underscoring a critical perspective that would significantly influence Iran-Israel relationships post-revolution. Nonetheless, during the Shah's era, economic and military ties between Iran and Israel significantly improved. Under the rule of Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, Iran at some point became a crucial oil supplier for Israel, enhancing Israel's energy security. Israel, meanwhile, equipped Iran with agricultural knowledge and technology to modernize its farming practices. In fact, after the Six-Day War, a conflict which was fought in June 1967 between Israel and the neighboring states of Egypt, Jordan, and Syria, where Israel captured the Sinai Peninsula, Gaza Strip, West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Golan Heights, Iran increased its oil supply to Israel, channeling a significant portion through the Eilat-Ashkelon pipeline. And yes, there was a pipeline that was used for supplying Iranian oil to Israel. This pipeline, also known as Trans-Israel Pipeline or Europe-Asia Pipeline, runs from the Gulf of Aqaba on the Red Sea to the Mediterranean Sea and was initially built to transport Iranian crude oil across Israel to European markets. It's an interesting story related to this pipeline. The need for a pipeline and the energy resources became evident after the Suez Crisis. Constructed in 1968, this large-diameter pipeline was a joint venture split evenly between Israel and Iran. However, following the Iranian Islamic Revolution and the deposition of Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, Iran stopped using the pipeline and cut diplomatic ties with Israel. By 1979, Israel had incurred approximately $1 billion in debts to Iran related to transactions made before the revolution. This debt comprised both oil purchases and revenues from the operations of the Trans-Israel oil pipeline and its port facilities. In 1979 meeting, Israel opted not to pay those debts and provided legal immunity to Israeli companies involved. Since 80s, Iran has pursued legal actions in European courts to recover these debts and has secured several victories. The payment situation is legally entangled due to international sanctions against Iran and Israel's designation of Iran as an enemy state. In May 2015, Swiss court mandated Eilat-Ashkelon Pipeline Company to pay $1.1 billion to Iran. This is an order that Israel has defied. Moreover, the complexities extended beyond financial disputes. During the mid-1970s, Israel and Iran had military, economic, and intelligence collaborations and were engaged in several oil for arms contracts. In exchange for Iranian oil, Israel assisted Iran in developing advanced missile technologies. Notably, in 1977, six such agreements were signed, including Project Flower, which aimed to aid Iran in devising a new missile system. In fact, Yaakov Shapira, the chief financial officer of the Israeli Ministry of Defense, who was also in charge of coordinating the negotiations with Iran from 1975 to 1978, once said, "In Iran, they treated us like kings. We did business with them on a stunning scale. Without the ties with Iran, we would not have had the money to develop weaponry that is today in the front line of the defense of State of Israel." Besides assisting with the modernization of the Iranian military, Israel sold weapons to Iran and helped train Iran's security forces. The Israeli Secret Service Mossad and the Iranian intelligence and security organization Savak worked closely together on various security-related projects. Additionally, there were cultural exchanges and cooperation in education and other fields between the countries. There were various scientific and academic collaborations between institutions from both countries. But this was before the Islamic Revolution. The Islamic Revolution in Iran shook the world in 1979. The revolution led to the overthrow of Shah of Iran Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, who was a close ally to the United States as well as Israel. Shah, his family, and the prime minister fled the country and sought refuge outside of Iran. The overthrow of Shah and the rise of Ayatollah Khomeini brought to power a regime that was vehemently anti-Western and anti-Israeli. Khomeini's government quickly severed all diplomatic and commercial ties with Israel and supported anti-Israel militant groups. Iran's new theocratic leadership consistently opposed US and Israeli interests in the region, a stance that has persisted to the present day. Ayatollah Khomeini dubbed Israel the enemy of Islam and Little Satan, while the United States was labeled as the Great Satan and the Soviet Union was the Lesser Satan. However, it is important to note that although relations between Israel and Iran worsened, they did not deteriorate immediately to their current level. This took some time. During the Iran-Iraq War of 1980s, Israel sold military equipment to Iran. Arms sales to Iran from 1981 to 1983 totaled $500 million, according to some estimates. These sales also included spare parts for US-made F-14 Phantom jets. According to a source, roughly 80% of weaponry bought by Tehran immediately after the onset of the war originated in Israel. It appeared that the Reagan administration in the United States tacitly allowed Israel to transfer US origin arms to Iran. During this period, Israel supported Iran in other ways too. Despite all the speeches of Iranian leaders and the denunciation of Israel at Friday prayers, there was cooperation between the two states. Then came the Gulf War. The Gulf War of 1991 did not directly alter the relationship between Israel and Iran, but it did influence the regional dynamics, interactions, and strategic positions. The war highlighted the complex geopolitical alignments in the Middle East. Despite its strong opposition to the United States, Iran condemned Iraq's invasion of Kuwait and quietly supported the US-led coalition, although it remained officially neutral. This stance was in part due to Iran's own war with Iraq in 1980s, which left it wary of Iraqi intentions and capabilities. For Israel, the Gulf War posed a direct threat, as Israel was attacked by Iraqi Scud missiles. This led to a scenario where both Iran and Israel shared a common enemy in Saddam Hussein, albeit for different reasons and with different allies. Despite their shared concerns about Iraq, the Gulf War did not bring Iran and Israel any closer politically or diplomatically. The collapse of the Soviet Union and the defeat of Iraq in the Gulf War, the relative power in the Middle East shifted to Iran and Israel. This further worsened Iran-Israel relations. The conflict escalated in the early 1990s as Israel's government adopted a more aggressive posture towards Iran. Rhetorical conflict heated up during the presidency of Mahmoud Ahmadinejad in Iran, who made inflammatory statements against Israel. Other factors that contributed to escalation of bilateral tensions include Iran's development of nuclear technology, Iran's funding of Islamist groups such as Hezbollah, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and Hamas, as well as alleged involvement in terrorist attacks such as the 1992 attack on Israeli embassy in Buenos Aires and the 1994 bombing at the Argentine-Israelite Mutual Association building in Buenos Aires. This bombing, which killed 85 people and injured 300, and subsequent investigations suggesting links to Iran and Hezbollah, worsened relationships. According to U.S. official sources, since 2012, Iran has spent more than $20 billion to support foreign terror groups in the Middle East and beyond. Besides, Iran has been accused of engaging in proxy wars against Israel, particularly through its influence in Syria. Iran's military presence in Syria and support for Assad regime have allowed it to establish a direct front against Israel from the Syrian territory, leading to several direct confrontations. Only between 2012 and 2018, Iran provided over $16 billion to the Assad regime and to other proxies in Syria, Iraq, and Yemen, Lebanon, and Palestine. Iran's involvement in various regional conflicts, especially where Israel's interests were directly or indirectly affected, such as in Syria, Lebanon, and Gaza, has continued to fuel hostilities between the two nations. There have been multiple attempts of attacking Israeli embassies or Jews that point out on Iran's involvement. A good example of this is bombing of Jewish tourist bus in Bulgaria. Israel, in turn, has allegedly supported militant groups such as Jundallah and the People's Mujahideen of Iran, which is an Iranian political military organization that advocates for the overthrow of the Islamic Republic of Iran to establish a secular democratic government. Israel also has carried out operations in Iran, including multiple assassinations and bombings. Mossad was suspected of being behind an explosion at a Revolutionary Guard missile base in November 2011, which killed 17, including General Hassan Moqaddam, a key figure in Iran's missile program. Starting in 2010, a series of assassinations targeting Iranian nuclear scientists commenced, widely attributed to Mossad. These assassinations were an attempt to hold Iran's nuclear program or to cripple it following any potential strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. Israel has reportedly conducted numerous airstrikes on Iranian forces and Iranian-backed militias in Syria, aiming to prevent Iran from establishing a permanent military presence close to Israeli borders. These strikes often target armed depots, convoys, military bases associated with Iran's Revolutionary Guards or Hezbollah. Furthermore, there have been reports and accusations of Iran's engaging in cyberattacks against Israeli infrastructure and digital networks. Conversely, Israel has also conducted cyberattacks against Iran, aiming to disrupt Iran's nuclear program. Particularly, the Stuxnet computer virus significantly damaged Iran's uranium enrichment facilities in 2010. So yes, such actions on both ends have contributed to a hostile relationship between Iran and Israel. Over the last few decades, the United States has played a significant role in both supporting Israel and working to prevent a large-scale conflict with Iran. This dynamic involves several interconnected strategies and actions. The U.S. has provided Israel with substantial military aid, advanced weapons system, and political backing in international forums. This support is aimed at ensuring Israel's security and maintaining its qualitative military edge in the region, which the U.S. views as crucial for the stability of the Middle East and in line with U.S. strategic interests. The U.S. has also pursued policies aiming at containing Iran's influence in the Middle East and hindering its nuclear ambitions. These efforts include imposing economic sanctions and diplomatic isolation of Iran. Meanwhile, the U.S. has engaged in extensive diplomatic efforts to prevent escalation into a full-scale conflict between Israel and Iran, which could destabilize the region and have global repercussions. This includes negotiations that led to the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action in 2015, an agreement between Iran and world powers aimed at curbing Iran's nuclear capabilities in exchange for lifting some sanctions, which have posed an immense damage to Iranian economy. Hardliners in Iran sought to sabotage the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. The most infamous act of sabotage was the 2016 U.S.-Iran naval incidents and publicly testing missiles after conclusion of the Iran nuclear deal under slogans "Death to America," "Death to Israel," and "Death to Al-Saud." Supreme Leader Ali Khomeini rejected negotiations on security matters, leading to U.S. President Donald Trump withdrawing from the deal in 2018. This decision, coupled with plummeting oil revenues due to sanctions, triggered a fiscal crisis in Iran. There was a hope that Biden administration would go back to the Iran nuclear deal, but diplomatic talks to revive the Iran nuclear deal reached a dead end in mid-2022. However, given the success so far in avoiding escalated tensions in the region, it is reasonable to assume that there are still discussions, either directly or through intermediaries, with Iran. So, who knows? Maybe there will be hope for broader cooperation in the future, especially given that the United States has historically had complex relationships with Iran, and Iran's geographic position is indeed of great strategic importance for the US. So, what led up to more recent events? On October 7th, 2023, Hamas, a militant organization supported by Iran, launched an attack in southern Israel, resulting in the deaths of 1,139 people and the kidnapping of at least 253 Israeli and international citizens. In response, Israel initiated an ongoing invasion of the Gaza Strip, which, according to the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry, has resulted in over 33,000 deaths. Following this, the Iranian-backed proxy Hezbollah in Lebanon began attacking northern Israel, leading to over 4,400 violent incidences and the evacuation of approximately 100,000 Israelis from the area since the conflict began. Additionally, the Iranian-backed Houthi movement launched numerous drones and ballistic missiles toward Israel and hijacked and attacked ships in the Red Sea, significantly disrupting trade through the Suez Canal. On April 1st of this year, an Israeli airstrike targeted the Iranian consulate annex in Damascus, Syria, killing 16 people. Iran vowed revenge shortly after the attack. On April 13, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, in collaboration with Iraqi Popular Mobilization Forces, Lebanese Hezbollah, and the Yemeni Houthis, launched this large-scale attack. Iran stated the operation was retaliation for an earlier Israeli airstrike on an Iranian consulate annex in Damascus. Iran's attack consisted of approximately 170 drones, over 30 cruise missiles, and more than 120 ballistic missiles. In response, an international coalition, including the American, British, French, and Jordanian air forces, defended Israel. Israel reported that 99% of the drones and missiles were destroyed, mostly before entering Israeli airspace. However, the attack also revealed that Israel might not be able to defend itself against future threats alone. Shortly after the Iranian attack, Israel vowed a significant response to Iran's actions. Following the attack, the Iranian economy suffered immediate adverse effects, with the national currency, the rial, plummeting to a new low against dollar. An article in The Economist discussed how the strikes against Israel deepened the existing rift between the Iranian government and its citizens. It reported widespread concern among the Iranian public that the regime's aggressive foreign policy could lead to war. The article noted public sentiment expressed through satire and cynicism about the effectiveness of military actions, with comments such as one suggesting the only result was that a lot of Israelis died laughing. Moreover, anti-government graffiti appeared in Tehran urging Israel to retaliate against Iran, with statements like, "Hit them, Israel, Iranians are behind you." The Economist suggested that this level of internal discontent could pose a greater threat to the regime's stability than external threats. Despite warnings from the US, Israel's War Cabinet convened on April 15th to discuss a response to the attack. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stated that Israel would make their own decisions regarding how to retaliate against Iran. On April 18th, Israel conducted a limited bombing raid on Iran. What will happen next is hard to predict. Leaders in both Israel and Iran may perpetuate conflicts to some extent for their political gains. For Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu, who has navigated various political challenges and controversies, including multiple elections and legal issues emphasizing security threats, can fortify his image as a decisive leader who prioritizes national security. Political leaders often utilize external threats to consolidate power internally and unify the populace around a common cause. However, discontent with Netanyahu has grown over time among the Israeli public. Dissatisfaction with Netanyahu continues to grow among the Israeli public. Many believe that after the war in Gaza ends, Netanyahu will struggle to maintain his grip on power, hence his perceived need for the conflict to continue. The prolongation of the war in Gaza has led to widespread international complaints, including from the United States. Given the unprecedented level of civilian casualties in Gaza, where about approximately 50% of the population is under the age of 18, the majority of those dying are children. This situation is increasing pressure on Israel to either stop the war or pause the conflict. As a result, Netanyahu needs to shift his focus away from Gaza, with Iran becoming a new point of attention. Despite the significant damage in Gaza and the heavy losses among Hamas supporters, Israel is not achieving a strategic victory. This situation is leading to Israel increasingly being seen as aggressive, which could potentially increase support or sympathy for Hamas. Meanwhile, Iran, understanding the risks of direct confrontation, may continue to financially support or even increase its funding for Hamas and other organizations, complicating matters further for Netanyahu's government. Additionally, as Israel contends with a prolonged war in Gaza, the broad exemption from mandatory military service for ultra-Orthodox men have reopened a deep divide in the country and shaken the government coalition. Prime Minister Netanyahu's proposed new conscription law has faced strong opposition from his fellow war cabinet members. There is widespread unhappiness in Israel about why both men and women should serve in the army, while ultra-Orthodox Jews are exempt. Public discourse has become increasingly toxic, a shift from the unity demonstrated early in a war. The ultra-Orthodox community has been a staunch supporter of Netanyahu. Netanyahu's government coalitions have frequently included ultra-Orthodox parties, making the conscription issue particularly sensitive. However, if the Gaza conflict goes on, and Israel engages in a broader conflict with Iran, it will necessitate drafting ultra-Orthodox men. Such a move may significantly impact the community's support for Netanyahu. Meanwhile, in Iran, those in power also need some level of conflict to consolidate power internally and unify the populace around a common cause. In the video on Iran after the Islamic Revolution, I discussed that public discontent in Iran has been growing as the economy struggles with high inflation and poverty rates. However, I don't believe it is in their best interest to have a direct clash either. From international players' perspective, while Russia may benefit from a broader conflict between Iran and Israel, the United States has repeatedly stated that it does not seek escalation in the region, although the US has repeatedly emphasized its readiness to defend Israel. The U.S. has complex interests in the region, and it appears that the Biden administration is actively working behind the scenes to de-escalate tensions. There have been ongoing rumors of tensions between the Biden and Netanyahu administrations. Recently, various publications have reported that Israel has been notifying the United States about its attack at the last minute and has not been cooperating effectively. President Biden is likely to continue to publicly support Israel while cautioning against more aggressive actions. Doing otherwise would be politically risky, and especially in an election year. Before the 1979 Islamic Revolution in Iran, various high-level Israeli officials stated that Iran was one of Israel's best friends. If history has taught us anything, it is that there are no permanent friends or enemies, only permanent interests. Only time will show what these interests will lead to in case of Iran and Israel. This was the World and Me project with Dr. Yeva Aleksanyan. I hope you enjoyed our video. Please press the like button, share our videos, and subscribe to our channel for more videos. You can also visit our website at www.worldandme.info and read articles related to our videos. Stay tuned for our next video. and I'll see you soon.